The love letter that Aiden wrote back then wasn't meant for me. He had an aloof personality and wouldn't have liked an ugly girl like me at all. I snatched it away by mistake. It's okay. Let's part on good terms. I thought so until the elevator fell and I died. Reborn 10 years ago, I hadn't received that love letter yet. It wasn't too late for everything. I set things right. I gave the love letter to its real owner. However, later, Aiden got drunk and leaned against the door of my room. With red eyes and a trembling voice, he said, "How dare you be so self-righteous?" I was tidying up my things when Aiden's sister came to help. When we were tidying up the storage room, an album fell out. I bent down to pick it up and opened it. It was an album commemorating the high school days of Aiden and me. In the graduation photo, Aiden and I both looked young and inexperienced. Aiden stood out from the crowd, and his cold and aloof temperament was already somewhat evident. His sister pointed at the photo with her finger, looking for me one by one. I smiled and pointed myself out to her. When I was going upstairs, the nanny who was relatively close to our family in the house stopped me and whispered, "Madam ordered that no dinner should be left for you." I nodded. It was a common occurrence. When I turned around, I paused for a moment when I heard the nanny's inner thoughts. His sister nodded and asked, "I heard that my brother wrote a love letter to a pretty class beauty in his class. Was that class beauty you?" The atmosphere suddenly became quiet. His sister tilted her head to look at me. I blinked my eyes. I wasn't the class beauty. I was just an ordinary girl who used to like Aiden. 10 years ago, during the break between classes, there was a lot of pushing and shoving. Aiden was pushed in front of me. The male classmates around were jeering and laughing. Aiden stood in front of me. The impatience in his eyes was hard to fathom. I was blocked in the corridor by a group of people and was even more anxious. Is there anything wrong? I still need to help the teacher distribute the math test papers. Just at that moment, a light pink letter paper fell out of Aiden's pocket and flew to my feet. I bent down to pick it up, but his slender fingers snatched it away first. Before it was snatched away, I saw the signature at the end. My name is Daphne. At that time, I was sensitive and self-abased. I never thought that one day the voice in my heart would be answered. My face under the bangs couldn't help but turn red. I tugged at the corner of my clothes and said in a low voice, "Thank you. I like you too." Now that I think about it, the class beauty also had a character in her name. What are you making a fuss about again? Aiden, who was 28 years old, had sharp features. Compared to his cold-heartedness back then, he now had a bit more of a mature temperament. He rubbed his eyebrows irritably. "Why do you want to break up with me?" My throat felt as if it was blocked by a ball of cotton. Doubts and grievances lingered in my heart. It seemed too childish to question someone 10 years later about something that happened 10 years ago. Just thinking about it, I knew that Aiden would frown and say, "It's been so long. If it wasn't for you, then it wasn't." So what? I watched the numbers on the elevator constantly dropping from the top floor. I said, "Let's just leave it at that. Let's part on good terms." As soon as I finished speaking, the elevator dropped rapidly. A sudden white light made me close my eyes. Bang! A basketball flew through the air and hit me right on the forehead. "Are you okay?" A group of boys full of youthful vitality rushed towards me. "Aiden, why did you hit someone with the ball?" One of the boys turned his head and asked. I fell to the ground and involuntarily shifted my gaze to the right. I met the eyes of the boy not far away. His basketball uniform was soaked with sweat, and his muscles were bulging. It was him at the age of 18. In the school infirmary, the white gauze was fluttering. It took me half an hour to come to terms with the fact that I had been reborn. Aiden, standing beside the bed, had a solemn look in his eyes. "Are you okay?" I remembered that this was the day when he accidentally hit me with the ball. It was the beginning of my misfortune. Aiden was afraid that he had given me a concussion. Since then, our interactions had increased. And then there were all those other things that happened later. Thinking of this, I forced a smile. "Classmate, you can go and do your own things. I've already found someone to take care of me." The cold and aloof teenager who was 1.8 meters tall looked back at me. His eyes were calm and peaceful. He nodded and said, "Okay." The moment Aiden stepped out of the school infirmary door, a figure rushed in a hurry and passed him by. "You idiot. You can even get accidentally hurt while watching a basketball game." Justin, the school bully who was my childhood friend, was holding a basketball that he didn't have time to put down. He had deep-set features and a distinct jawline. The impatience in his eyes disappeared the moment he saw me. He reached out and knocked on my head. "You're such an idiot." I smiled and pushed his hand away. When I looked towards the door again, Aiden's figure had disappeared. When I returned to the classroom, I found that the seats in the class had been changed a lot. It was the seat change that happened every 2 months. Looking up, I saw that my things were on the empty desk beside Aiden. It was exactly the same as in my previous life. I took a deep breath, thinking about who I could exchange seats with. Before the seat exchange was completed, the head teacher let a girl in. She was wearing an exquisite long white dress. As soon as she showed up in front of the classmates, she amazed everyone. The moment I saw her face, I knew that she was the real owner of Aiden's love letter. Hello, everyone. My name is, she turned around and left neat and elegant handwriting on the blackboard. Faye, please take good care of me. She bowed, and when she raised her head again, her eyes were curved with a smile. I heard the whispers of the girls. Is she the ballet specialty student who won a big award? Didn't they say she was going to study in the international class? Why is she here? Amid the discussions, Faye walked down the platform and walked all the way to the back row, stopping beside Aiden. She looked at me, who was standing beside his desk mate. She asked, "Classmate, can I exchange seats with you?" I nodded, of course. Hearing this, Aiden paused for a second while writing on the test paper. But he resumed writing as usual in just a second. "Classmate Aiden, long time no see." Her voice was soft. "Can I sit next to you?" "Whatever." Aiden's voice was neither cold nor warm. He just continued to move his pen on the test paper. Naturally, my seat was moved to a new position. I packed up my things and moved over. I let out a sigh of relief. Even though I had repeatedly warned myself to stay away from Aiden after being reborn, an uncontrollable sour feeling still welled up in my heart. Let it be. Isn't it good like this? Perhaps it was just my imagination, but the moment I sat down, a gaze fell on the skin of my neck and lingered there for a long time. After class, I went to the boiling water room to get some water. The girls around were chatting about gossip with great interest. They said that Aiden and Faye met outside a competition venue. They said that they looked so well matched at first sight. While talking, one of them suddenly leaned over and pinched my nose. "Aiden is such an outstanding student with long legs, strong abilities, and an ascetic look. How could an ugly duckling like you be worthy of him?" The way they looked at me suddenly changed. They would never have dreamed that an ugly duckling like me could also have a dream come true one day. In fact, being with Aiden wasn't as wonderful as I had imagined. He was cold and distant. We didn't seem like a couple but more like neighbors sharing the same room. "I don't like Aiden anymore." They opened their eyes wide and looked at each other in surprise. For a moment, they couldn't tell whether I was telling the truth or lying. "How is that possible? Come on, everyone knows that you like Aiden. How can you just stop liking him like that?" The one who had pinched my nose just now folded her arms and tried to provoke me. "Hey, since you don't like him anymore, then do you think he and Faye will get married?" The warm water rushed into the glass, making a splashing sound. I tightened the lid. I nodded, yes. It would be even better if we could drink their wedding wine. Suddenly, the voices around me disappeared somehow. A tall and slender figure walked over, bringing with him a cool cedar scent. He walked past me. He lowered his eyes and started to get some water, and Faye also followed behind him. Her fair and delicate little face had 2 blushes on it. She muttered in a low voice, "What are you all talking nonsense about? I heard that Faye has been going to and from school with Aiden recently." "Wow, are they already together so soon?" "I heard that they aren't yet, but probably will be soon." I buried my head in the test papers and turned a deaf ear to the voices around me. "Daphne, Daphne." Someone knocked on the glass window and called my name. Looking up, I saw Justin leaning against the door frame and calling me. He was smiling brightly and innocently. He had a bit of a ruffian look in his eyes. "What's up? Why are you so fierce when I'm bringing you food?" He showed me the lunchbox in his hand, which was full of braised pork. I ran out, relaxed my eyebrows, and sighed helplessly. "You're so good looking that you'll get me into trouble. And this is too greasy. I can't eat it." I pointed at my face. I had an endocrine disorder and got pimples. It wasn't until I drank traditional Chinese medicine for a long time that it was gradually cured. So usually, I always covered my face with bangs and glasses. "What's wrong with you?" Justin took off my glasses, held my chin, and looked me over. "I think you look fine. Those who say bad things about you have no taste." He showed his 2 canine teeth, pretending to be fierce. "Next time anyone says something bad about you, I'll beat him up." I pushed his hand away, put on my glasses again, and threatened with my eyes, "Don't fight, okay?" In my previous life, Justin was competitive and had the reputation of a school bully. It wasn't until he was stabbed by someone with a knife in an alley that his precious and young life ended. "Don't fight casually at any time," I emphasized by poking his forehead. "Okay, okay." Justin raised his hands in surrender. "If you eat a few pieces of my braised pork, I'll promise not to fight." When I was walking back, I happened to bump into Aiden. His eyes fell on the corner of my mouth. I wiped it with my finger and found that it was the sauce of the braised pork. He walked straight ahead without looking sideways and passed me by. When I walked into the classroom, I realized that he was in a hurry to explain the questions to Faye. Faye had her long hair loose and leaned close to him to listen carefully. Aiden was holding a pen, and there was a tenderness and patience in his eyes that I rarely saw. The wind blew past his face, and it seemed that even his usually untouchable hair became soft. I suddenly understood. It turned out that the flower on the high mountain could also be picked by someone. But that someone wouldn't be me. I never thought that I would have an intersection with Faye. Aiden's and my student numbers were next to each other. Naturally, we were on duty together. I had planned to just get it over with casually, but unexpectedly, Faye came to me. Daphne, could you exchange with me? I'd be really grateful if you could. The girl's face was flushed, and she and Aiden looked so well matched no matter how you looked at them. I nodded. A happy smile appeared on her face. Thank you. Here are some cookies I made by myself. Have some. After giving them to me, she left. Unexpectedly, the next day, she came to me again. Justin was pestering me to chat. He put his hands in his pockets, looking wild and unrestrained, and smiled with his head tilted. Next week, I'll take you out to play, okay? We'll go to the coastal city that you mentioned before. This time, don't play tricks by using study as an excuse. I've already made a plan. Daphne. Faye suddenly called my name. She trotted over and took my arm. In my puzzled expression, she leaned close to my ear and said softly, I want to confess my love to Aiden, but I'm so nervous. Shall we have a double date? Helping my rival confess her love to the man who was my husband in my previous life. Just thinking about it made me feel ridiculous. But Faye kept pestering me. Girls who are pretty and cute like this often make it hard for people to refuse when they ask for something. The sea breeze in Bienhai City was blowing gently. When Aiden saw me for the first time, he seemed a bit surprised. Especially when his eyes fell on Justin beside me, his gaze dimmed for a moment. Hearing that the most handsome boy in our class was also there, Justin dressed up really flashily. He even used hair gel and showed his forehead, making him look even more flamboyant and imposing. I nudged his shoulder and said, why are you dressing up so flashily when someone else is confessing their love? Justin got unhappy and said, I originally thought it would be just the two of us today. How was I supposed to know there would be a third wheel? He leaned close to my ear and said, and the way that guy looks at you, I always feel it's a bit strange. I turned my head and, sure enough, found that Aiden was also looking at us. How could that be? You're overthinking it. How could Aiden care about me? We were just ordinary classmates now. As the sky darkened, the sea breeze was gentle and lingering. The rain started to fall on the ground bit by bit. We went to a small seaside restaurant to take shelter from the rain. I winked at Faye. It was time. As long as she could confess her love successfully, either of us could be happy. Our eyes met, and Faye immediately made up her mind. Aiden. Faye's face flushed red, completely lacking the calmness she usually had when performing on stage. I like you. At the moment she said that, it felt like a stone had been lifted from my heart. I pulled the clueless Justin and walked outside, planning to leave the rest of the space to them. But in the next second after turning around, I heard Aiden say with his eyes downcast, sorry, I already have someone I like. I still remember Aiden's expression clearly even now. Why did he tell the person he liked that he liked someone else? I couldn't fall asleep that night. I was still feeling groggy when I got up for class the next day. When I arrived at the classroom, I saw that Faye's desk was empty. She probably couldn't bear the blow of the failed confession and asked for leave. The math class representative, please collect the homework. I was pushed awake from my daze. I collected the homework all the way to Aiden's desk. Aiden didn't say a word and even used a bit of force when handing me the notebook. Snap. It woke me up completely. What the heck? It wasn't me who confessed to him. Was he too embarrassed to agree yesterday and now full of regret and taking it out on me? I rolled my eyes and went back to my seat. I routinely started to count the number of notebooks to see if any were missing. Suddenly, snap, a letter fell out. I bent down to pick it up. Suddenly, it looked a bit familiar. Dear you, it was Aiden's love letter to Faye. Had he written it so long ago? I suppressed my surprise. How much did Aiden like Faye to write such a love letter? Even though I knew it wasn't right, I still quickly read through the love letter that I hadn't read carefully in my previous life. Aiden's handwriting on the love letter was different from his usual bold and powerful style. Instead, it contained a bit of shy affection. I couldn't help but look in Aiden's direction. He seemed normal, as if he didn't know that the love letter had been accidentally handed out. An idea popped up in my mind. Since Aiden was too embarrassed, I'd give him a hand. When Faye saw that love letter, her face was filled with joy and became even redder. So Aiden actually likes me too? Of course. Although he's cold and difficult to deal with, he really likes you. When I said this, I remembered what Aiden's sister had said before I was reborn. Back then, my brother used dozens of sheets of draft paper just for writing the love letter and crumpled them all over the floor. Faye blushed uncontrollably. She made up her mind. Okay, I'm going to make a second confession. Faye is going to confess her love again? I heard it's the second time. Last time Aiden pretended to be aloof and refused her, but later it was found out that he had even written a love letter behind the scenes. Damn, a pure love couple. I'm shipping them. Word spread quickly from 1 to 10 and then to 100. The classmates flocked to the corridor and looked downstairs. The shadows of the camphor trees swayed in midsummer. Faye was wearing a school uniform skirt, with a few strands of hair pinned up, leaning against the tree trunk waiting for Aiden's arrival. It was just like an idol drama. I was also among the crowd, feeling quite emotional. Here he comes. I don't know who started it, but I saw Aiden's figure appear at the stairway entrance. His tousled hair fell over his forehead, and he had a tall and slender figure. You were looking for me? When Faye saw him, she shyly walked closer to him. Aiden, I fell in love with you at first sight when I first saw you. Could you be my boyfriend? Obviously, Aiden didn't expect Faye to make a second confession. He looked confused and said, but didn't I reject you last time? Faye's face became even redder. She took out something from behind her. She shook the envelope at Aiden. But the person you like is me, isn't it? At this moment, the people around started to cheer. Don't be shy. Get together. Get together. The voices were overwhelming, one wave after another. Aiden turned a deaf ear to them. I don't know if it was my illusion, but his face turned a bit pale at the moment he saw the love letter. He was stunned for 2 seconds. He raised his head and his gaze directly met mine on the second floor. I was also stunned. Aiden's eyes revealed a disappointment so intense that it was almost stinging. I didn't get to see how the confession scene ended. I was pulled out by an arm. I couldn't stand steadily for a moment and fell onto someone's solid chest. Justin's chest vibrated as he laughed conspicuously, so skinny. You fell over with just a light pull? I stood up straight, pushed his chest away, and my face burned unconsciously. What are you doing? Nothing. I'm envious when I see others confessing their love. Justin casually glanced at the hustle and bustle downstairs. Anyway, come to find me after school. Don't bring a third wheel. Justin didn't explain the reason, so I had to go to the appointment after school. At the newly opened night market, Justin just walked around aimlessly. He bought small accessories for a while, then bought takoyaki, and then put a cute animal headband on my head. He bought me a rabbit one and put a bear one on himself. The stall owner fanned himself with a fan and asked us with a smile if we were a young couple. I was afraid of his misunderstanding and quickly waved my hands. After that, Justin was silent all the way. I told him jokes to cheer him up, but he didn't respond. Until we reached the end of the night market and there were fewer people. The evening breeze in summer blew the tousled hair on Justin's forehead. He looked down at me and sighed after a while. Daphne, I really hate that you're so clueless. Can't you tell that I like you? I've tried every way to be alone with you and planned a confession in Bienhai City for 2 months. But you used it to help others confess their love. Huh? Hearing this, my mind went blank. Justin liked me? Since when? Justin looked at me, his Adam's apple bobbing. Daphne, can I kiss you? He lowered his head and got closer to me. The closer he got, the more I could smell the scent of bitter orange mixed with cedar on him. It smelled really nice. The distance was getting closer and closer. I was so nervous that I closed my eyes. A cold voice suddenly rang out. Are you two in a relationship? I was startled. Justin followed my gaze and saw the person who came. Aiden, still wearing his school uniform, was standing not far away, and Faye was following behind him. Even though we had nothing to do with each other long ago, I still felt a bit guilty under Aiden's gaze. Justin straightened up and gently wiped my lips with his fingertip. He smiled at Aiden in a wild and unruly way. No, but it'll be soon. The warm touch on my lips disappeared in a flash, and I was stunned. Then congratulations. Aiden turned around coldly, his back stiff, and walked away quickly. And Faye just quickly waved at me and then trotted after Aiden. What was he angry about? It seemed that Faye's confession was successful. Justin's confession kept lingering in my mind. When I was about to leave, his furry head rubbed against my neck. Like a puppy begging for affection. His eyes were bright as he asked, do you like me or not? My mind was in a mess. Knock, knock, knock. Someone knocked on my door. For the convenience of studying, I rented a small 1-bedroom, 1-living-room apartment near the school. Usually, I only went home on Saturdays and Sundays. Who would come to find me at this time of night? As soon as I opened the door, there was a thunderclap outside in the corridor, and a flash of light appeared. A person threw himself at me. I was startled. I subconsciously wanted to step back. But that person held me even tighter with his strong arms. Don't move. The person who came was aggressive, reeking of alcohol, and his voice was terribly hoarse. It was Aiden. I tried to break free from his hold, but a drunk person's strength was surprisingly strong. The clear cedar fragrance on him, mixed with the smell of alcohol, filled my nostrils. His embrace tightened more and more, as if he wanted to integrate me into his very bones. I could even feel the beating of his heart in his chest. How dare you be so self-righteous? How dare you give my love letter to someone else? Hearing this, I was stunned. An incredible idea sprouted in my mind and grew at an astonishing speed. You're back too? Yes. I should have thought of it earlier. We had an accident together. Why should I be the only one who could come back and not him? So, Had he been quietly watching everything I did since I was reborn? The young man in front of me slowly overlapped with the Aiden who wore gold-rimmed glasses 10 years later and was full of the aura of a superior. Suddenly, I gathered a lot of strength and pushed him away. Go away. Let's calm down. Maybe we're just not suitable for each other. I was carrying a stack of exercise books and walking through the corridor. The English listening was playing on my Walkman. At the back door of class 3, Justin was standing there casually. It seemed that he had been kicked out by the teacher again for not bringing his homework. I walked straight ahead without looking sideways. When I was almost at the stairway entrance, I was pulled into a corner by a force. My heart skipped a beat. I met his irritated eyes. He raised an eyebrow and said, "What's this? You didn't reply to my texts or answer my calls. Have you decided to cut off contact with me?" I thought about it. Justin did seem to have sent me messages. But Aiden had also sent me messages. I was so annoyed that I blocked both of them at once. "I'm busy." I brushed it off. I wasn't lying. In my previous life, my college entrance examination scores were just average. Later, I was admitted to my dream university during high school through the postgraduate entrance examination, which meant it took me 4 more years to get there. In this life, while I still have the chance, I want to make up for this regret in the college entrance examination and aim for a higher place. Justin's expression softened. "Even if you just replied with a period, it would be okay. Don't ignore me. Do you know how I've been these days? I haven't slept well." Looking at Justin's eyes now, there were indeed a few more dark circles under them. He was just standing arrogantly at the classroom door just now, but now he was pretending to be pitiful in front of me. He pulled my hand and put it on his face. "Look, am I not handsome like this?" His eyes were bright as he rubbed my palm, making my palm itch. Justin's eyes changed too. His Adam's apple bobbed up and down. He turned his head. He got closer to me as he breathed. The spring air was already thick. Now my heart started to waver too. The books in my hand fell to the ground and scattered everywhere. The sound woke me up immediately. I crouched down quickly to stack the books up. The teacher is still waiting for me. I'll go first." Justin called after me. "Daphne, do you like Aiden?" My heart was beating fast. I didn't respond to this question. I just hurriedly put on my glasses and walked out, leaving Justin looking lonely behind. In the middle of the night, my mobile phone rang again. Justin, who was pulled out, and Aiden, who sent messages through an unfamiliar number, unexpectedly asked me at the same time. "Justin, Daphne, who on earth will you choose?" "Aiden, Daphne, when can we have a talk?" My head was spinning. After pursing my lips and thinking for a moment, weighing the pros and cons, I replied, "I want to concentrate on the college entrance examination. We can talk about it after the exam." It seemed that Faye's confession didn't succeed. She had red eyes for the first few days, and then she applied to the head teacher to change her seat and became deskmates with a chubby girl. And Aiden sat alone. The pressure of the college entrance examination made everyone too exhausted to think about other things. The monthly exams and weekly tests again and again were so stressful that even number 1 middle school, which was famous for its relaxed teaching mode, only had 1 day off every week. When the head teacher announced the ranking of the monthly exam in the first class, he said, "There's a dark horse in our class this time. The speed of progress in grades is amazing." The teacher always knew that hard work would pay off in the end. Daphne got the 5th place in the grade this time. Let's give her a big round of applause. The head teacher took the lead in clapping. A group of classmates turned their heads to look at me. With surprised expressions on their faces, they seemed unable to figure out how a plain and ordinary nobody like me could make such great progress. They were still whispering when I went to the stage to get my test papers, as if they were just starting to take me seriously for the first time. "Hey, is this still Daphne? Why does she look so confident? It seems that she has fewer pimples on her face and has become prettier." Some people said that the one Aiden likes is not Faye but her. I didn't believe it before, but looking at her like this now, it's really possible. The head teacher then changed the topic and started to criticize. "But some of our classmates can't be complacent. Especially Aiden and Faye, you two should pay attention." It turned out that Aiden had a fever a while ago and dropped out of the first place in the grade. And Faye was absent-minded. If she continued like this, she would even have difficulty passing the art exam line. I looked at Faye. Her eyes were red. To avoid the surrounding gazes, she buried her face in her arms. When I passed by Aiden's seat, he stopped the action of twirling his pen. His eyes met mine, and he moved his lips but didn't say anything. Until the college entrance examination, I finally had a period of stable and single-minded days. This period of time was not wasted after all. When the bell for the English exam rang, I put down my pen. I handed in a satisfactory answer sheet for the time since I was reborn. 3 days after the college entrance examination, the head teacher asked the monitor to organize a dinner party. When I arrived, everyone's eyes were fixed on me at the door. I was wearing a newly bought dress, with my bangs pinned up and my hair falling behind my shoulders. I even took off my dull glasses. The girl closest to me asked, "Did you go to the wrong place?" Oh. One girl recognized me and said, "You're Daphne." Daphne? Isn't Daphne dark and dull? When did she become so pretty? Is this beautiful girl Daphne? She has such a good figure? I said before that Daphne was a potential stalk. She would surely look good if she dressed up. But who knew she would be so good looking? Their surprised expressions were as if a meteorite had fallen from the sky. People are visual animals. During the dinner, many boys started to invite me to have dinner or go shopping alone. The flattering expressions were the kind of treatment that I had never encountered in the class before, and more girls came over to ask me how I got rid of my pimples and what whitening products I used. They were chattering, and I was surrounded by everyone like the moon among the stars. Suddenly, smash! The wine glass in Faye's hand fell to the ground. She slapped the table and stood up. Pointing at my nose, she said harshly, "Daphne, were you already prepared to become beautiful after the college entrance examination and be with Aiden? That love letter was clearly written for me. Why did Aiden say that he liked you? Have you been deliberately playing tricks on me all along?" Everyone was stunned. They didn't expect that Faye, who had suffered from the blow of being rejected in love, would be so hysterical and even point the finger at me. "Speak up. Can't you say anything? I only heard from others later that you had a secret crush on Aiden for 3 years. Were you deliberately trying to make a fool of me?" The atmosphere in the private room dropped to freezing point. Aiden stood up and said, "That love letter wasn't mine. I wrote it for someone else. I'm sorry for making you misunderstand." How could it be? If you don't believe it, the third line in the love letter said, "I first met you outside the bookstore. Actually, I met you outside the venue of a competition and was introduced by the teacher in charge of the event." I remember it very clearly. I looked at him. I didn't expect that he, who didn't care about anything in his previous life, would stand up to clarify for me. Faye's face was getting paler and paler. "The person I really like is Daphne. I've liked her for a long time." Aiden's last sentence was so powerful that it completely shattered Faye's emotions. She couldn't hold back and covered her face and ran out of the private room. I also ran out after her. Faye looked thin but ran very fast. I spent a lot of effort to stop her. I was out of breath, supporting my knees. "Sorry. If I hadn't let you see that love letter, none of these things would have happened today. Faye, if you're angry, just hit me." I closed my eyes, waiting for Faye's slap to fall on my face. But after a long while, nothing happened. She sniffed with sobs, looking like a little kitten. "Who's blaming you? I heard it from others and thought you were playing tricks on me. It's just a man. It doesn't matter if he's gone. I'm not one who can't afford to lose. It's all his fault for not making it clear. If this one is gone, there'll be another one. The next one will be better." Faye was about to cry again when she said this. I could only try my best to comfort her. After a long time, Faye finally stopped crying. She took my tissue to wipe her tears and accepted my kindness. "Since my confession failed, I'm going abroad to study ballet. I probably won't come back to China in the future. Goodbye, Daphne." She gave me a hug. The proud girl left with her back straight. I knew that Faye would surely become the principal dancer of the Royal Ballet in the future. She would surely have a bright future. On the day when the college entrance examination results came out, I performed exceptionally well. I asked the head teacher, and he excitedly told me that I was the second in the whole school. The first was Aiden. Aiden got this result in his previous life, so I wasn't surprised. The class group instantly exploded. Fireworks were sent one after another, flooding the screen. "Ha ha ha, I can go to my ideal school now. Thank God. I don't have to go to Hingshui to repeat a year of study. Everyone should come to my school entrance banquet at that time. It will be held at XX Hotel, room XXXX. With this result, I was already able to be admitted to the graduate school of my previous life. "Daphne, I've seen your result. I didn't do well in the exam. Even though I studied hard, I could only get into a second-tier university. Am I stupid?" Justin called me for a video chat at the first time. His handsome face appeared on the computer screen. His hair was a bit messy, and he looked very resentful. His tone was gloomy. "Am I so stupid that I don't deserve you?" I couldn't help laughing. I remembered that in his previous life, he helped a boy who was being bullied, but because the boy didn't dare to stand up and accuse the bully, Justin was given a serious demerit and dropped out of school. In the end, he died on the street from excessive blood loss. It's already good enough. I made a gesture of stroking his hair through the air. "Daphne. You?" Before he could ask a question, my mobile phone rang. Aiden's name was flashing on the screen of my mobile phone. Justin's eyes dimmed when he saw it. "Hello? Daphne, can we meet up?" There seemed to be a bit of moisture in Justin's eyes. Is this your choice? Who? Aiden asked vigilantly. Justin snorted. He looked rather fierce and unruly. I hung up Justin's video call, looking at his handsome face frozen in the last frame. That look in his eyes was like that of a puppy that had been abandoned. I kept on the phone call with Aiden. Aiden, come out. Let's have a talk. Walking along the artificial lake on campus, there were children of the school staff playing football on the grass nearby. The setting sun was shining, and the lake was glittering. Aiden took off his school uniform and put on a white shirt. He vaguely looked like what he would be like in a few years. Actually, I lost a bet that day. Others punished me by asking me to confess my love to a girl. The love letter that others wanted to give to Faye just dropped in front of you. I hadn't figured out how to explain this misunderstanding. But you were too embarrassed to admit it, right? I caught the loophole in his words. Yes, I liked you a long time ago, but the vanity in adolescence made me dare not admit it. Yes, in everyone's eyes, I was as dull as a speck of dust. His pride made him dare not admit the truth or his feelings. Daphne, let's start over, okay? He grabbed my wrist, trying to hold my hand. I shook off his hand and resolutely took 2 steps back. I didn't want to get too involved before to avoid affecting my studies. Now let's make it clear. Aiden, admit it. You're actually an emotionally impotent person. I've never said this before, I despise your cowardice and your actions. We're just not suitable for each other. Even without the matter of that love letter, I would still leave you. Let's end it here. I won't follow you to the school in the South. You go after your bright future. Let's each live our own lives in peace. Aiden lowered his head, and his eyelashes were trembling. I'm just an ordinary girl. I really don't have the energy to play those games of whether you love me or not. I just want to choose someone who I like and who I can feel likes me too. I walked away without looking back. My future path is bright and splendid. I don't have time to care about the expression on his face or sense the emotions on him. Whether it's disappointment or regret. What are you doing here? Justin huddled under the quilt, his voice muffled. I walked over and lifted the quilt. Justin looked up. His hair was short and prickly, and even with both hands trying to block it, a tear stain in the light couldn't be hidden. Were you crying? Justin sniffed, but his voice was hoarse. No, I wasn't. He should let those boys who had been beaten up by him before see what he was like now. Look at the school bully who usually strutted around domineeringly over them actually hiding at home and being a crybaby. You've chosen Aiden. Why are you still here? I lifted the bag in my hand. I'm hungry. I came to have hot pot with you. Justin was almost fuming with anger. Daphne. Why are you so stubborn? Can't you just coax me a little? I sat on the edge of his bed and hugged him back. How do you want me to coax you? I'll show you my abs. Don't choose him, okay? No, I replied. I don't just want to look. I also want to touch them. Justin gritted his teeth and really lifted his shirt. There were 8 abdominal muscles with signs of exercise, neither too exaggerated nor lacking in aesthetics, rising and falling with his breath. I haven't even touched them yet. Why are you panting? He turned his head away, as if trying his best to hold back. After some random touches, his abs glistened with a sheen of sweat. Damn it, it was really seductive. I wiped my hands and wiped all the sweat on his abs. He gave me a strange look. Have you become naughty? I raised my eyebrows and smiled, moving closer to him. Is it being naughty when it's with you? It turned out that flirting randomly came at a price. Soon, Justin took the initiative instead. He learned quickly and started to take the lead. At the age of 18, he was full of energy. He kissed the corner of my mouth, looking like he couldn't get enough of it. He played with my fingers tirelessly and kissed my eyelids. I'm going to repeat a year of study. Will you wait for me? I lifted his chin. What if I don't wait for you? Justin threw himself into the quilt again, vividly showing me what would happen. I pulled him up and hooked my arm around his neck. And kissed his forehead. Then come to find me at university a junior schoolmate. Extra story, Justin, after a dream, my impression of my first love changed. Besides many indescribable parts, I also dreamed that Daphne in her 20s married Aiden, that Aiden in their class who was always serious, well-dressed but had a heart as black as coal. How could he be worthy of our lovely and kind Daphne? Because of him, Daphne didn't have a very happy life after marriage. But by then, I was already dead. I was ambushed because of my competitiveness. I woke up in a cold sweat the moment the knife stabbed into my body. I ran all the way to find Daphne. The braised pork smelled delicious. She didn't notice the cold sweat on my back. Daphne told me not to fight. I nodded. If I fought, I'd die. And I wouldn't be able to protect her either. In the dream, I was young, only 25 years old. The biggest thought before I died was regret, regretting that Daphne got engaged to Aiden, whom I had always looked down upon. I didn't even have the courage to confess my love. So this time, I took preemptive action. Until later. Even when I got what I wanted, I was still in a daze. As for that bullied student, although he kind of wronged me in the dream, it was really pitiful to see him huddled in the dirty corner after being beaten up. I'll just call the police for him. The siren sounded. I hid my merit and fame.